As we've seen, the operating part of the business is undoubtedly key. What's also fundamental is the role played by other areas of the organization in optimizing performance and, what's most important, in maximizing operating cash flow. We're now going to see the implementation of strategies in the financial and tax areas, as well as the group's risk analysis and control framework. We'll be guided by Susana, Irache and Maria, three of our corporate directors. We're going to talk about compliance at CI Automotive, the department responsible for the functioning of the second and third lines of defense. Compliance reports hierarchically to the CEO and functionally to the Audit and Compliance Committee and to the Environment, Social and Governance Committee, both of which directly report to the Board of Directors. Within the second line of defense, there are two main areas. On the one hand, the area of good governance, which includes defining and supervising compliance with the company's ethical framework and commitments assumed by the group, as well as monitoring compliance with legal requirements. On the other hand, the operational area, which is directly related to risk management and internal control of financial and non-financial information. The third line of defense, the Internal Audit Department, is globally coordinated by the Compliance Department. Through its annual plan and the necessary resources are managed and approved independently by the Audit and Compliance Committee. The annual plan includes the periodic auditing of the most critical processes of the group's process map, as well as a plan of rotating audits of all the plants and a detailed review of the most important investments. In order to create a comprehensive management of the department, as well as consolidating and standardizing how it runs, the compliance department in the operational area is mainly managed through the SAP GRC, Governance, Risk and Compliance tool. The company's risk map is created through the Risk Management module. The financial and non-financial internal control system is monitored and supervised through the Process Control module. And finally, the work of the Global Internal Audit team is coordinated and managed through the Audit Management module. Risk management. Let's now look at the 2020 risk map. It takes into account 19 risks, 6 ESG, 5 strategic, 3 operational, 3 financial, and 2 compliance. And 66 professionals from global senior management take part in its elaboration. The risks were evaluated based on calculating the probability of past and future occurrences of risks, as well as their impact in 3 categories: economic, organizational and reputational. In the 2020 risk map, the main risks identified were the following with medium level of probability and low impact. 1. Cybersecurity. 2. Fraud and corruption. 3. Change in market trends. There's no doubt that cybersecurity and data protection have become even more important, confirming the trend of the last few years, with the necessary digitalization due to teleworking and the progressive automation of the processes linked to Industry 4.0. With regard to fraud and corruption, I'd like to refer to the 2020 Transparency International report, which includes the anti-corruption laws in force in the countries where the company is located. The risks from market trends are largely linked to all the global movements for mitigating the effects of climate change, with a direct impact on consumer expectations. This also gives rise to a very strict regulatory framework in areas such as energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, waste management, and the circular economy. Europe and China are currently the most demanding regions with regards to environmental legislation, with a high commitment to becoming climate neutral. As I mentioned at the beginning, risk management is under the responsibility of the Compliance Department. To mitigate the risks, we have an internal control system integrated into the SAP GRC tool, a tool which integrates and consolidates the different ERP systems running at all CIE automotive plants. Finally, I'd like to highlight that the internal audit department has a mixed resource scheme. It has its own devoted staff and outsourcing, as well as mixed internal teams made up of business controllers and corporate personnel. So it combines best practices and the expertise of each area and person and enables synergies. In short, this is the work we're carrying out in the compliance department, a work which helps CIE Automotive to be a benchmark in this area. Thank you very much for accompanying me on this journey through the compliance function. At CIE, we understand that maintaining a solid financial position is essential for generating long-term value. And so, our financial strategy focuses on the following pillars: diversified financing sources, financing linked to ESG criteria, an appropriate liquidity reserve, and active management of the capital structure. Let's concentrate first on the diversified financial strategy. We've set a midterm goal of balancing our sources of financing with a balanced contribution of bilateral gross debt, of structural and institutional financing, and financing from capital markets. Our financial strategy is absolutely committed to the ESG criteria which govern our business model. This means that we will successfully increase the gross financial debt linked to ESG criteria at 28% in 2020 to levels of 50% in the next few years. We'll therefore prioritize the balance between industrial activity and its positive results with our commitment to respect the environment, the social criteria, and the group's good governance. The third pillar of our financial strategy is to ensure an appropriate liquidity reserve. In this regard, we'll continue on the same path as the last few years, providing comfort to our various stakeholders, while also ensuring a liquidity reserve of approximately 60% of gross financial debt. A liquidity reserve must be liquid in the long term and with an optimized cost. The fourth and final pillar of our financial strategy will lead us to boost matrix coordination, which will allow us to maximize opportunities in various countries. In this way, we'll continue to be able to actively manage the capital structure, optimizing working capital to reduce debt, extending the term of the debt, which at the end of 2020 was an average of 3.2 years, and managing to have about 70% of the debt with maturities of over 3 years. Maintaining our policy on finance costs, which currently represent slightly more than 1% of sales, and which will be decreasing gradually over the next few years, alongside the deleveraging of the company. We're going to achieve an optimum capital structure by combining natural hedging and non-speculative derivatives, which match our risk profile, achieving active management of the potential exchange rate risks, while always seeking a balance between cash flow generation and debt. And over the next few years, we'll have fixed interest rates of approximately 50%. So, I'd like to highlight that the group's financial strategy is and will be linked to credibility and the soundness of its management, fostering a close collaboration with current and future financing entities who are our travel companions in this new and thrilling challenge. Thank you for your attention. Since the very beginning, at CIE Automotive, we've always promoted an approach of respect and compliance with the regulations, aligned with value generation as regards tax. Some years ago, we created the first definition of a corporate tax strategy by establishing a policy framework and a single tax culture for the entire CIE group. From that point on, there have been ongoing reviews of the strategy, and it's been enriched by adopting the best and strictest practices in terms of transparency and tax behavior. We could say that CIE's tax culture is governed by the following principles. Firstly, responsible fulfillment of our obligations and a reasonable interpretation of the regulations of all the countries where we're present. At CIE, we avoid any type of contrived or opaque tax structure. We even keep away from those which, although they are not, seem to be this type of structure. There's no place for tax engineering at CIE Group. We invest a great deal of resources in preventing and reducing significant risks. Additionally, we foster a relationship with the tax authorities that's based on transparency, trust, and mutual cooperation. Finally, we understand our tax contribution to be a contribution to society, considering CIE Automotive to be a social agent that's contributing to the development of the countries in which we operate. In short, we have a robust tax management model to which we devote the necessary resources to ensure responsible and efficient behavior, which is not too far distant from our operations and is very much in line with our business. As regards this responsibility, this year we've taken a step further in our commitment to transparency, and for the first time, we've published our tax contribution report in the spirit of aiding an understanding of the tax and social contribution made by the group. Among the data published in this report, I would like to highlight that in 2020, the year of the pandemic, CIE has generated over €1 billion in value for society. Almost 200 million have been allocated to our shareholders through the distribution of dividends and capital reduction. Over €400 million have been paid as salaries to our employees. €350 million were allocated to paying taxes, both our own and collected from third parties. And finally, we have reimbursed financial institutions with the amount of €35 million. Parallel, we're convinced that at CIE we're acting appropriately in our tax approach. We've requested adherence to the Spanish Tax Authority's Code of Good Practice, thus reaffirming our duty of responsibility and transparency on tax issues. After giving an overview of our tax contribution, I'd now like to focus on corporate income tax and its future outlook for the next few years. Let's start by contextualizing our tax scope. CIE is very diverse, with companies in 20 countries under 22 tax jurisdictions with very different legislations, which, as well as being very different, are always shifting. So, Brazil makes up about 7% of sales of the group and is taxed at a nominal rate of 34%. In North America, where we have about 26% of sales, we're taxed at a nominal rate of between 30 and 25%, depending on whether we're talking about Mexico or the United States. In Europe, which contributes 41% to the group's sales, the tax bracket is very wide, between 15 and 28%. Lastly, in Asia, we have China and India, with national nominal rates of 25%. As you see, it's a very diverse mix. Weighing the contributions of each geographical area to the group's bottom line results in a theoretical nominal rate for CIE of 26% of EBT. But that theoretical 26% is not our reality. As we mentioned earlier, we behave in a tax-responsible manner. But as in the rest of the areas, we're pursuing excellence and working to achieve a tax performance which is also efficient. This is why we're working on optimization that will enable us to position ourselves in a way that's sustainable over time at an effective rate of around 22%, which in terms of payment drops to 15%, 11 points below our theoretical nominal rate. And how have we achieved these results? Well, among the different tools we use, we can highlight that we've learned how to make the most of a tax level of inorganic growth, relying on optimization levers such as the tax amortization of financial goodwill, or seeking optimal use of incentive regimes, such as in the case of China, where, due to the nature of our business, we've achieved a tax rate for the majority of our operations which is significantly lower than the country's nominal rate. I want to stress that the most significant part of these figures is not the data from the past or the current situation, which is highly efficient, but that as a result of our management and the visibility we have over the next few years, we can state that CIE Automotive will be capable of maintaining these levels of efficiency, even going beyond the time horizon of our strategic plan. To summarize, we can conclude that, committed to rigorous, responsible and transparent tax practices, at CIE Automotive we manage taxation with a very complex and plural scope in a highly efficient manner which is sustainable over time. Thank you very much for your attention.